May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be free from harm. May all beings love life. May all beings awaken. Welcome to another Cuke Audio podcast. I'm DC, Poobah of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, doing our bit to help preserve the legacy of Shunryu Suzuki and those whose paths cross his. And anything else that comes to mind. I pray that you and yours are safe and comfortable, free from economic hardship, and able to get out and do whatever it is you want within the limitation of the universal precept of do as little harm as possible. So today we have a guest, Rick McDaniel. Now, Rick has a unique story here. One thing is he's coming out with a book. He's just made an agreement with Monkfish, my publisher, for Tassara Stories. It's Original Face. This is his 9th book. We go over what books he's written. They all have to do with Zen. Zen in China, Zen in Japan, Zen in America. The book that he has coming out is one just talking about all the different groups and all their different approaches. You can see these books listed, I'm sure on Amazon.com, but you can learn more about his books and him by going to his website, rbmcdaniel.ca. That CA is for Canada. The website, you go on, it says Richard Bryan McDaniel, Zen Conversations and Profiles. Yeah, for instance, it's got a conversation and profile he did with me. He's got it on Suzuki, which I went over. He's just done one with Richard Baker with Nicole Baden assisting, and he really enjoyed that. That's not finished because, he goes back and forth with the people to make sure it's all right. He has a unique way of doing it, but he'll tell you about that. So anyway, let's go hear what he has to say. Hey.
Hello.
Oh, hi, Rick. Oh,
I'm not getting much in the way of volume.
Yeah. How about
There.
now?
Now I can hear you.
Yeah, this was back here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hello.
Well, hi there. How you doing?
I just, it's Sunday evening, so we just had a house full of people and just sent them merrily on their way.
And remind me where you are again, please.
East of Maine. I say it that way because when I first came here in 1967, I actually did not for some reason look at a map to find out where I was. And I'd been here for about, 3 or 4 weeks, and I thought, well, I should find out where I am. And I saw that I was east of Maine, and I thought, what the fuck? I've done those puzzles as a kid. There's nothing east of Maine. But in fact, there is in Canada 2 whole time zones east of Maine. So I'm in the first of the 2. So I'm fairly close to the Maine border, an hour drive to get to the Maine border.
Huh. Yeah. And what's the name of the place
New
where you
Brunswick.
are?
New Brunswick is the province. I live in a tiny little village called Island View.
Wow. And you've been there how long?
In New Brunswick? Since 1967. I came in 1967.
Wow. Wow. I went to San Francisco in 66. So that's interesting.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, I guess the way we know each other is you've been working on I didn't want to define it. I'd rather you define it. A rather far-reaching history of
Okay,
of
yeah.
what?
Okay, so starting in 2013, I had a small inheritance which allowed me to start visiting Zen centers. Um, it's a little more complicated in that I had written a book for Tuttle, and they asked me to do two more, and the third one was supposed to be about America, but then they changed their editorial offices, blah blah blah. But the point was that I had an opportunity to start interviewing people just to see what the state of Zen was. I wrote a book called Cypress Trees in the Gardens, which I described as basically being a snapshot. While I was doing that, I
Cypress tree.
trees,
Say that.
plural, more than one cypress tree. Cypress
Yeah.
trees in the garden, yeah. And
Huh.
what I did in that was I was very naive. Um, when the first place I went was actually San Francisco.
Hmm.
And I went from the Montreal Zen Center to San Francisco. And the way I describe that is it's a little bit like going from an Indiana Quaker meeting house to the Vatican. I didn't know what the hell you guys were doing in San Francisco. It certainly wasn't anything at all like what I had experienced then. Um, so I began to recognize that, and this became my topic for my next three or four books, that there is this enormous scope of Zen. People call themselves Zen and have traditional heritage and, those catching miyakus and all that stuff. But they often are very, very different from one another. And so that difference became kind of the subject of at least four books that I wrote for Sumeru. And as I've now done 288, I think, interviews. Um, and I realized somewhere along the line that in addition, although I was focusing on the differences, and so one of the tricks in would be I would take a topic and I would show seven or eight different responses. How would a Soto person do it? How would a Sanbo Zen person do it? How would this particular capload person do it as opposed to that particular capload, and so on. But what I was
Yeah.
also picking up at the same time is that I was getting an oral history of Zen. People were telling me about their meetings, as you did, with Suzuki Roshi, or their meetings with Philip Kapleau, or their meetings with Soya Matsuoka, or whoever. And I realized that I had, and a lot of these guys, they're dead that I interviewed already. For example, that first meeting that I had in San Francisco, that first meeting was with Steve Stuckey, Blanche Hartman, and Mel Weitzman, all three now dead. I have Bernie Glassman, dead, and so on and so on. So what I've got, I think, is an archive of not as extensive as yours, but I do have an archive. I've got the voices of these people telling how they experienced being that first generation of students. So the history that Monkfish just accepted, I call it an oral history of Zen. Um, I have a friend who teaches history at university, and he starts all of his classes by saying, history is the story of what did not happen, told by people who weren't there.
Yeah,
So
that's a great line. I love it. I use it. I think I got it from you.
it's a good line. I got it from John Jennings, so there you go. But at least this story will be told from the point of view of people who were there. So their memories and their interpretations may be as prone to error as anyone else's, but at least they will have had the advantage of having physically been present at the time.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's great. I just love what you. you're doing. Yeah, Monkfish. I told you got hold of me and
Oh,
asked me what I thought, and I responded enthusiastically, and
well, thank
John
you.
Sweeney said, "I think you would have gotten it anyway," uh, and from what John said was that's great, and I immediately think, ooh, I want to have a page for you on Kook.com that lists all your books and
My my my
has
son-in-law would be so impressed by that. He just had to leave because he had to take a song. But he said, "Could I meet him?" I said, "Oh, it depends upon what time you leave." But he was keen to. He's a big fan. He was really wanting to meet you. But
oh,
unfortunately, his parental responsibilities got in the way.
well, tell him he can do so. Just send me an email.
I will.
You know, well, I'm. I want to hear more about that, but I'd like to hear sort of your way-seeking mind story. How this all came about, where you came from. What year were you born?
1947. What year were you born?
45.
You're my senior. Oh God, I owe you respect.
Right. Yeah.
You're an
Well, you look.
octogenarian.
Yeah. Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. You look good. Uh, that's right. Bob Hope said there's three ages: youth, middle age, and looking good. I think that was Bob Hope. No, that was Red Skeleton.
Could be.
Red Skeleton.
I'm old enough that I recognize who both of those are, and I guarantee you none of my grandchildren do. So,
Well, Red Skelton's more obscure now. He didn't. He didn't. Bob Hope continued on. Oh God, he lived to be 100 or something. And where were you born?
okay, I grew up in northern Indiana. I was born in Garrett with a T, not Gary, but Garrett, and very quickly moved to LaPorte, which is about 25 miles west of South Bend, 70 miles east of Chicago, right up by not quite 10 miles from the tip of Lake Michigan, so way north Indiana. So,
Uh huh. Kurt Vonnegut
well,
State.
yeah, yeah. Uh, or more importantly, my mother came from Baltimore, and so she had an East Coast accent. She hated the accent I grew up with, and so she sent me to elocution lessons. So I didn't speak like this until I was taught to speak like this. But I was sitting in the car with my wife the other day, and the old Guns N' Roses versions of "Knock Knock Knock on Heaven's Door" comes on, and Joan says, "Where the hell is that guy from?" I said, Indiana. We have all sorts of perfectly good two-syllable words in Indiana, like dawa and aya. Don't open the dawa, you let the aya in. Uh, I had to learn how to say those as single-syllable words. So
Hoosiers. You're a Hoosier.
Hoosiers, Hoosiers.
Yeah. So, so what led you from that point back there? What were the pivotal moments, and then what led you to practice?
You want the long version? You want the short version?
Long version. No, we got all the time in the world. I'm sure
Okay,
you want to
okay,
go to
okay.
bed.
So, okay. The assumption people made was that I came to Canada. I'm putting this just to place me in New Brunswick, that I came to Canada because of the war. Not so. In fact, I sort of assumed that I would go back. And when I got to Canada, I came because there was a difference in the cost. I was paying $2,400 a semester at the college I was at in Rensselaer, Indiana. And the university that this professor that I knew was coming to Canada, and the tuition was $450 a year. So
Yeah.
I just wrote to the registrar and said, "Look, I'm a friend of Jack Dealey's. Can I come as well?" So that's how I got here. I did not intend to stay. I did not intend to avoid conscription. But what happened was Kent State. And
Mm.
first of all, when you got here, everybody treated you like a rock star. So I would play the card. I would let people think I came because of the draft, even though I hadn't. I would play the card because, boy, you are a rock star up here. They made it really easy. They made it super easy. And when Kent State came, I realized I was going to be staying here. So that places me in Canada. That's what. So just to put that aside.
Yeah, interesting.
So long story. I had no information about Asian spirituality at all. But in 1971, uh, I've described this elsewhere, which is why I've written about it. I had through I committed a gratuitous act of cruelty, just awful, and seriously endangered another person. There was a group of about four of us, I guess, and realized that, oh, fuck, did I mess this up? And in desperation to try to rectify the situation, I'm being deliberately vague about the situation, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
We stayed up, and we stayed up, and I was exhausted. Finally, about 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm guessing, maybe we got things where things were okay, and I lived in this little cottage called Birkenbray. It had a name. You could actually write a letter to me, Rick McDaniel, Birkenbray, Lincoln, New Brunswick, and it would get to me. That's all it needed. It was on 2 acres of wildflowers and fruit trees, abandoned goat sheds. And a friend drove me back there, and I was too exhausted from what we've been doing, just too exhausted to unlock the door. I was too tired. There was a wrought iron bench in front, so I sat down on the wrought iron bench. I was thoroughly ashamed of myself. I was thoroughly ashamed of the kind of person that I had become. And the way I describe it is that I just felt like I could no longer make the effort of maintaining Rick. That Rick was a role or something that I played. I didn't have a language for this at the time, but I just let it all fall away. And I had an immediate, overwhelming uh, opening experience. It was
Mm.
absolutely undeniable. I had no language for it. I was sure of two things. I was sure that what it was revealing to me was accurate. And I was sure that I was not the only person that had ever had this kind of relation, or this kind of insight. I describe it as being like, in the old days when you were in a car driving, you had the radio on and you couldn't get a signal, and you just nudge that dial just a tiny little bit and the signal comes in crystal clear. It's always been there. It had always been there. You just had to get either closer to it or nudge the dial a little bit, and it came through. And that's what it was like. It's like it's always been there. This revelation that in some way everything in creation is united by love in the ongoing process of evolution. I mean, that was the kind of language I used just to try to explain to myself what had happened. I knew one person that I thought might know something about this. He lived on Brookside in Maine, which was about 10 kilometers away. And so I'd gone from being absolutely exhausted to being energized. And so there was a railroad track behind this little place. And I began walking those railroad tracks into the city and eventually over to his place, where by the time I got to it, I just passed out from exhaustion. And described to him what had happened. I said, "You have any idea what this is?" And he said, "Yeah, you had a mystical experience." And he gave me, for of all those things to give me, he gave me a copy of Alan Watts's The Book. And
Oh, yeah. It's good. Yeah.
so I read that and I went, yeah, that's kind of it. Okay, yeah. So so I now know that there are people that have had this type. I actually changed my graduate work. I was doing a graduate work at the time and was finishing an MA, and I did a PhD. I changed it so that I could focus on on just exploring comparative religions, spiritualities, and things like that. Tried to make sense of all this within Catholicism because I really liked Catholicism. I knew that it wasn't literally accurate. I knew that there wasn't that, but I could see how it fit. You know, it kind of filled those gaps, but I didn't really do anything. Um, I also compare it a little bit to like cataract surgery, in that
Huh.
when you have cataract surgery, this eye was virtually blind. When I had it, one of the things I discovered is that I had forgotten what white was, that I had not seen white for probably decades. What I saw as my eyes got dark, it was kind of a pissed yellow. That was what I saw as white. But because
Oh.
they do the cataracts, they have to do one and then wait a month to do the next one. So I have this eye, which is now seeing crystal clear, absolutely crystal clear, and it's got whiteness going. Wow, that's white. This eye still got the dingy, the dingy yellow, so I could actually. But and as amazing as that experience was, it becomes normative. So there's a
It
period
became what? It became what?
normative.
Yeah.
So that there's this moment, there's this period of time when you're going around and saying, I can see white, I can see leaves on trees, which I haven't been able to do for a long time. I can see, but within 10 days, it's just the way things are. And that's pretty much what happened with the opening, is that it was at first it was really sort of ecstatic, but then it just became, okay, yeah, that's the underlying way in which I now see things. That's just part of my understanding of the world, but I'm not in any practice or anything. Actually, somebody gave me a copy of the Three Pillars of Zen. This is a funny story. And I read it and I went, well, Jesus, these guys are just trying to get what I've already got. So what the hell's use is this book? And I threw it away.
How you read the whole thing and you said these guys are playing
These
that.
guys are they're struggling to get this experience, right? Because the whole you read Three Pillars, I assume. It's this really
Yeah.
bombastic, and it's struggle and struggle. You've got to get that awakening experience. You've got to get that thing. Well, I said, geez, I already got that. So why would I want to do any of this? So
Yeah.
that all that and anyway, time passes, probably about 25 years, close to. Be about
Wow.
1985, 1986, maybe. No, this has never left me. That the impact of that
Wait a
moment.
minute. You said 71.
That's when I had the experience.
86 would be 15 years.
There is one problem that I have that I have to warn you about. I am literally numerically dyslexic.
Uh
So I can't do numbers.
huh.
I can't picture numbers, and I can't. For example, if you were to give me a series of numbers to add in my mind, I would actually have to write them down and see them before I could do that. So the fact that I mistook between 15 and 25, that's just common road for me. I don't do numbers. So about
Yeah, that's funny.
1986. So 15 years. Okay,
Uh-huh.
15 years. So the perception, the inclination, the whatever it is, the orientation hasn't left me. Not doing much with it. Do try to make some sense about it within Catholicism, not too well. I get a job as an international development officer. Um, in itself, a absolutely bizarre story, but I get this job and I begin working on one of the projects that I've got is with the Jesuit priest by the name of Tomas Morero. And Tomas was Cuban, but he was working in the Dominican Republic, and he moved down into the areas on the riverside where the areas flood and people's houses get inundated with water and sewage, etc. But so the very poorest people in the community. And we had a nice project. We were working with the kids, trying to get them access to an education that they would use for the benefit of the communities they came from. Because what happened with most kids is they took the education and that was a way to get away from those communities. And
Right. Right.
what Tomas was trying to do is find kids that he could identify by talking with the community and saying, if I give David an opportunity to go to this polytech, will he use it for your benefit? And he he had a good 75% success rate, which I considered very high. Anyway, so we were working together. And one day he says to me, I'm giving a retreat up in the mountains in Harabacoa. Would you like to come to it? And I go, absolutely no fucking way. You're a Jesuit. I've been to Jesuit retreats. You're going to ask me to picture my girlfriend's body in her coffin as it rots. This is what you do as a Jesuit. So I
Ha!
don't want to go. And he says, no, I don't do that. Actually, I didn't actually cost him that way, but that was my feeling. I'd had Jesuit retreats, so I figured that's what it would be.
Hmm.
So, but what
Yeah,
happened?
Buddhism could do that too.
But what
You know,
happened? Oh
Buddhism
yes,
does
of course.
that.
Certainly the Tibetans do it all the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what he does is he takes us up there in the mountains, and he's actually working with people, young men again, the same students that he would take to the Polytechnic, and he's going through the Anthony de Mello Sadhana exercises. Do you know who Anthony de Mello was?
No,
Okay, Anthony de
I've
Mello
I've
was
heard the name, but no.
Anthony. Actually, I was talking to you. Do you know who John Pauline is? From the new head guy at Rochester.
Yeah, I know the name. I
Okay.
know
It's
he's
just it's
there.
just that the other day I mentioned that if people ask me for a book about spirituality, I still give them Anthony de Mello's Awareness, and he said, "So do I." I thought, well, that's good. It's got a good Zen background.
Wow, that's
But
great.
what it is that he was a Catholic priest who took because he grew up in Goa, so he's Asian, and so he used Asian spirituality, sadhanas, as a way of approaching awareness or developing what he called awareness.
Mm.
And I recognized that what he was doing was what I was looking for was I'd always been looking for a kind of a practice for a way of honoring, if you will, this orientation or deepening it or whatever it is. I thought it deserved some kind of notice. And this sadhana exercises, I could do these, and so there's a book of them that DeMello wrote, and I got the book and I'm practicing. And a couple of years later, so this would be about 1987, I had Thomas in Fredericton because you're supposed to have reciprocal relationships in this type of work. And we had a community of
Frederickson is where?
New Brunswick. It's the capital of New Brunswick.
Uh
Okay, so that's where like I
huh.
said, I didn't know there was anything east of Maine, and I'd been here for 2 weeks. So there was a community of people from El Salvador living in Fredericton at the time. It was at the time when there were still a lot of people escaping from the political situation in Central America, had established lives in New Brunswick and so on. And when they heard that I was bringing a Cuban Jesuit, they asked if he would be willing to hear their confessions in Spanish. So I said, Thomas, do you mind hearing a bunch of Spanish confessions? And he says, no problem. So we put up some posters. The posters just said, Jesuit priest, Spanish confession, such and such a date. There was another group in Fredericton, and this was a group of a little bit more higher class group. It's a couple of lawyers, a doctor, and one guy, Great Nicholas, would go on to become the lieutenant governor of the province. And so these were pretty, significant people who were really committed to their Catholicism and were doing this packaged Jesuit spirituality program called the Christian Life Community, CLC. And they had done it and they spent 2 years, 3 years going through it, and they were really hit. They were really just excited and everything. But they didn't know what to do next. There was no follow-up. So they see the poster saying there's this Jesuit priest in Frederick, a live Jesuit priest in Frederick. Could I arrange for them to meet with him? So now I got Thomas going to meet with this group as well as with the Spanish confessions. And so they described their experience and how much they'd gotten out of the CLC program and how they didn't know what to do next. And Thomas says, well, that's simple. You do the Thomas, the Anthony de Mello sadhana exercises. And they said, well, but who will lead us through it? And Thomas said, Rick will. I went, okay. I have no idea how to do this. None at all. Um,
Huh.
I got to find out how to do this. So that's what actually led me to call the Montreal Zen Center. I figured if I could see how a Zen Center operated, maybe I could figure out how to do this. So then I went to the Zen Center. They used to make you do a workshop before they let you do anything. Workshop first, and they made it because I was 500 miles away. They allowed me to stay there overnight. They gave me a room, and
I like an orientation workshop.
yeah, it's a little orientation workshop. Just basically they know that they were getting 50 people at every workshop, but they'd be lucky to have one a year that stayed. That's just the way it was. Blanche Hartman told me it was exactly the same thing in San Francisco. She said, "I got all these people going to these workshops. I don't know where the hell they go because I never see them again." And that was pretty much what happened. He would get people that would show up for about 10 weeks, and but they, there were it was a slow process, but he did. Anyway, so you're in this what they called the lower Zendo at the time, and they're playing music, and music's not in English, so I'm ignoring it because I'm assuming since it's Quebec that it's French, and I don't speak French. So I'm sitting there ignoring this music. And then I realize that I can understand what they're saying because, in fact, they're singing in Spanish, which I do speak. And not only that, but I recognize what they're singing. It's St. John of the Cross's Dark Night of the Soul Canticle. And they're doing it in Spanish. So I thought, well, that's kind of cool. And then after they did the workshop, they took us upstairs to do our first round of formal zazen. And as I'm sitting there, because it's Montreal and it's noon, there are Angelus bells. And I heard Angelus bells probably when I was a kid in Laporte in grade school, but I hadn't heard Angelus bells since. So I just had this sense that I was probably in the right space. And then, I started to practice with Albert. He said, "Well, what you had was a Kensho experience." I said, "Well, goody, goody, what good does that do me?" And
But he said it's a what experience?
he said it was a Kensho experience back in
Uh-huh.
'71. And he said, "Well, what we can do is we can deepen it, we can enrich it, we can bring it into your life, we can incorporate it." And so we began that process. So that's how I got involved with the practice. And so I stayed with Albert until he died. Um, and after he died, by that time I needed a walking aid because of another long story about having a leg that wouldn't heal. And
A leg that wouldn't what?
heal. Uh,
Heal. Oh,
I have
heal up.
osteoporosis. Okay, you can tell because you can see that my spine is crushed. I have
Oh,
osteoporosis, so I was taking a medication for osteoporosis called Fosamax. And one of the side effects of Fosamax is that your thigh bone snaps in two. Now, notice the way I put that. It's not that you fall and your thigh bone snaps. It's you're just walking along minding your own business. Your thigh bone snaps and you fall. So in my
oh,
case,
your thigh bone broke
it
while
snaps,
you
it
were
shatters.
walking? Oh my God.
So this thing is still this is there was a lawsuit. There was a lawsuit. This side effect was major. Anyway, in my case, it took 26 months and three surgeries before I could use the bone again. So
Oh,
so anyway. On the other hand,
oh,
that's why I started writing because I had nothing else to do. So I started writing because of that.
oh.
Anyway, so by the time Albert's dead, I can walk again, but there's lots of things I can't do, and I really can't do sesshin anymore. It's not a reality. But I wanted to continue to do the koan curriculum, and at that time, Dosho Port was in Portland, Maine.
Oh, oh.
He didn't stay in Portland, Maine long, but he was there briefly, and so I made a relationship with him, and then we moved to Minneapolis. We do what we're doing right now. We do Dokusan by Zoom, and I continue
What
to do.
year? What year was that?
That began with Dosho.
Yeah. Could you
20,
just mention Zoom?
well,
That's
20,
really bringing it into the
well, yeah, I mean,
recent
it
era.
was 2016, 17,
Uh
right?
huh.
At first we did. At first we did Skype. But then that was about 20. I guess when would Albert have died? It would have been a year after Albert died, whatever that date that was. So that's how
uh,
I got involved in Zen practice.
wow, that's really interesting. Yeah.
And then, but like I said, I knew nothing. I really knew nothing about it except Montreal. Um, and Albert was a Philip Kapleau heir, although people argue about whether he was or not. And I could give a damn. Um,
Yeah.
but he certainly was much older than all the rest of them. Significant, about I think 20 years older than most of them, and he was British, so he didn't really feel sort of that camaraderie with the youngins, who at that time were the people like Bowden and Sunyana and all the rest of them. Although he got along pretty well with Mitra, but Albert sent him to Montreal because he spoke French, and the guy in Montreal had left. It was actually the first satellite center they set up. That Kapleau had set up was in, I think, Montreal or Toronto, one or the other. And Kapleau sent him to Montreal. So it's counterintuitive because he had this rich British accent. So he sent him to this place where there's a French separatist is alive and well. But
Uh-huh.
he thrived, he flourished. I don't speak any French, and he spoke French very slowly with a French and English accent. And I could almost understand his Dokusan. So I came to the decision that if only French people would speak with a British accent and slowly, I might, I might be able to
Ha,
follow.
ha. Now,
Anyway, so I
what
said,
was Albert's last name again?
Low, Low,
Uh-huh.
Albert Low.
And when did you start uh,
So
practicing with him?
I would have started at probably, okay, let's say it was 1985 that I had the meeting with 88.
Uh-huh. 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 Well, that's interesting.
But like I said,
Yeah, I'd like to see the these teachers' names and the book you talked about. I'd like to get an email from you
okay. Okay,
with
well, the book was
that.
I'm not sure which book. I think I mentioned the book by Alan Watts.
Oh no, no,
Oh,
yeah,
the
well,
Anthony DeMello book. Got it. Yeah, I can
yeah.
do that.
That's that's.
Can you just write down and make a note, and then just send me an email, and I'll just respond
Oh
to
no,
it?
look, I'll transcribe. I transcribe
Okay.
the interviews, and then
As
I'll
do
send
I.
you questions.
As do I.
Yeah, yeah. Uh,
So the
well,
point I was trying to make was that because all I knew was Albert, I assumed foolishly that every place else I would be like that. And I even used an analogy in one of my books. I said, after all, if you attend if you attend a Catholic Mass in Canada, Mexico, or Italy, it's going to be the same experience. So I just assumed similarly it was going to be the same experience wherever I went. And in fact,
ah,
what I discovered was that it didn't. It wasn't that it was this vast array of practices, all of whom identified themselves as Zen, all of whom had the official documentation going back to someplace in China in some many steps, but that who often viewed the world incredibly different. I'm reading your book right now, uh,
which book?
the Tales of Tassajara, and I'm thinking,
Uh,
this is nothing. I don't recognize any of this stuff. So,
uh-huh.
that became my interest, that broad scope of the varieties of practices that come under that heading of Zen.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wow. Um. So, uh, your books. How many books have you written?
Well, the one that's coming out, the one that Monkfish is going to bring out will be number nine,
Number nine. Why don't you what's it going to be called?
Original Face,
Mm-hmm.
as in
Mm-hmm.
Face Before Your Parents Were They're Born, which in fact was the first koan that Albert gave me.
Now, it is it is it about you and your path as well as the work
No,
you've been doing?
no. If that happens, I foresee two more volumes following this. So
That's just like me
the first
because
volume.
I have 3 volumes of Dasaran
Well,
stories.
I mean, really, the first volume is these are the pioneers. These are the guys who if you forget about the 1950s, which was very there was a guy in New York, there was a guy there was Senzaki hanging around Los Angeles. So really, if you wanted to do Zen, you went to Japan. So you had people like Philip Kapleau and Walter Nowak and Gary Schneider and those guys. They would go to Japan. I say that Zen as a practice that becomes accessible practice really starts with two men, and that is Robert Aiken and Sunrio Suzuki. And they both, and you start them both from 1959. 1959 is when Suzuki arrives, but it's also the year that the Diamond Saga Sangha is formed. So I take that as my
Right,
starting point. And I say,
right.
these guys, there's about maybe a dozen people, no more. And everybody else that's in the country right now is probably a descendant of one of these 12 guys. So you've got Suzuki and Aiken, you've got Kaplo, you've got Maizumi, you've got Shimano, you've got Sasaki, you've got Kennett, all of these guys sing song.
Matsuoka.
Matsuoka. And so what I did in the first volume is they're all dead, right? But I had the opportunity to interview many people who knew them personally. So the oral history in volume one is here are the people who remember those 12 guys who are responsible for the Zen being in this country, the first 12.
Yeah.
Volume two then is those students, that first generation of students, because they're going to become the second generation of teachers. But they're also the first generation of students, and their story is closer to mine in the sense that they're in time. I'm about the same age as them, but I don't become engaged until three, which is what once that second generation of teachers start to form their schools, then what you've got is a legacy. So what is the legacy? So it's the first volume are the pioneers, second volume is the heirs, and the third volume is the legacy. So
So, original face, does it have a subtitle like The Pioneers?
well, yeah, it does, and but well, I don't know. I haven't. James Ford suggested I not tell Monkfish that it's the first of three. He said, "Settle this one first, and then we'll
Oh,
know."
well, they know mine is. We've
You got to
already got a
hire
contract
you got
for
a
the
higher
second one.
profile. You got a higher
Yeah,
profile than I do.
that's funny.
So anyway, but yeah, so it'll be the first volume will be original faces and pioneers in America.
Yeah, good, good. Yeah. Now, what's the first book you wrote? That
Okay,
was
so back to my leg. So my leg breaks in 2010, and um, as I said, in my case, the bone wouldn't bend. They thought they were sure that within 8 weeks I would be walking again. They put a bar in the leg. They say 8 weeks the leg will bone. But whatever it is that caused the thigh bone to fracture, whatever that chemical is in the Fosamax, prevented the bone from mending. So what would happen is, and this took place over 26 months, is that I would do an operation, then I would get this whole process of learning how to walk again, start with a walker, and then two crutches, then one crutch, then a cane, They do another operation, take that bar out and put a stronger bar in. It goes through that process. So as a result, for almost 2 years, I was not able to do anything. I couldn't bike, I couldn't hike, I couldn't kayak. I was basically bedridden. So I had been keeping this, actually from high school, this commonplace book where at the first it was just Bob Dylan lyrics. You'd find things that you thought were meaningful and you'd write them down in the book. And so, the first 50 pages is just Bob Dylan lyrics. But when I began doing koan work, I began writing the koans in it. And also all the other, because there's all these nifty Zen stories, right? So I would write them down. So I had two or three books, the hardbound, ledgers that you can buy in a bookstore, a stationery store. And they're full of these stories. And most of them are Zen stories. But I realized that I don't know anything about these people. I don't know. First of all, I really was naive. I didn't know anything about Zen until all this happened. So I don't understand why they have different names because I didn't know there were two forms of Chinese romanization. I didn't know that one name, that Zhao Zhu and Chao Chao are the same guy. I didn't know that. And then the fact that they give him a Japanese name on top of that, I didn't know that. So what I did was I did this purely as a way of amusing myself, nothing more. I took all of those stories and I tried to put them in chronological sequence and then fill in the gaps. And my daughter, again, I was just doing this because I wanted to know what the connection was. My daughter, who was an eroticist, that's a fancy way of saying she writes porn, but she does
Far
get
out.
my favorite review that she received was one that said surprisingly literate for the genre. I think it was a great line. Anyway, she said, "Why don't you try to publish this?" And she showed me how to write a pitch letter. The only place that I knew that did anything with Buddhism was because I still don't know much about the tradition is Shambhala. So I sent it to Shambhala. They wrote me back a very nice letter. They said, "This is a great idea. We can't do it, but here are two editors that you should look at." And Cal Barksdale at Tuttle was one of them, and Albert Lowe, my teacher, published through Tuttle. So I wrote to them and said, "Bet you, I know Albert." Shambhala said that I should write to you. They phoned me and they said, "Yeah, we'll take this. We'll do it. But you got to do three. You got to do one on Japan as well and one on America." And that's when it got weird. So the first book was
Three.
simply,
All right, three. Your book was
the first one was Zen Masters of China. So it's
yeah,
just all the stories that I had collected and put in chronological order
yeah.
by the teacher. And then I did the same thing with Japan. And then I started doing the same thing with the United States. It was more complicated because I had to decide how far I was going to go. And that's when Tuttle moved their editorial offices from Vermont to Singapore. And I couldn't get
Did
clarity
you say
about.
to Singapore?
Yeah, they're in Singapore now.
Is that right?
Paraplus, I think it's called now. Paraplus.
Oh, Paraplex. That's a big bookstore chain here
Yeah,
in
okay, Paraplus.
Indonesia.
Yeah, that's where they are now. So they John Negru of Sumeru contacted me before, I guess, after the first book came out, and he said, "Tuttle's a good publisher, but if you ever want to be patriotic and publish in Canada, I'd be glad to be your publisher." So when Tuttle began to hedge about whether they were going to bring out the third volume or not, I contacted Negru, and he said, "Yeah, sure, absolutely." So he did the next, what, six, I guess.
What?
He did the next six books.
Oh, all right. So, what was the
So,
fourth
so
one?
the fourth, okay,
Wait a
so
minute. Next
what
six
happened
books. Now, there's you another numerical error
okay. So
because you done a. This is your ninth one,
yeah,
and the third one
Is the
couldn't
first
be the
with him?
start of the next six, could it?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it could.
Yep. The first two are with
No,
Tuttle.
no, because Monkfish is doing the
There are two
ninth.
with Tuttle, six with Sumaru, one with Monkfish. That's nine.
Oh, you're right. I was adding it to three. It's to two.
What happened
Yeah,
was the first two books were the same book, only Negru said cut it in half. That was where just looking at all the people who were alive that I could interview. And then I the very first official Canadian Zen master, the very first person from Canada to receive transmission is a Roman Catholic nun from Moncton, New Brunswick, which is just an hour and a half down the road from me. Her name was Elaine McInnes, and she was a missionary in Japan and then later in the Philippines. And so Sister Elaine is the first authorized, she's within the Sanbo Zen tradition.
yeah.
She's the first authorized Canadian. And so I began, and of course, I had run into Ruben Abito. I had run into Pat Hawk. I had run into all of these guys. So I did, the next book I did was Catholicism and Zen. An interesting story about that is that Negru didn't want to publish it, and I think it was ended up being his bestseller because he didn't think it fit his catalog at the time. But in fact, it did better in terms of selling than his other work. So
Wow.
those were the
What
first.
was the one before it?
That was the first one was called Zen Masters of America. It was called Third Step East, Third Zen Masters of America. The one after that was Cypress Trees in the Garden.
Uh,
So that's the snapshot of all the places. Then it was Catholicism and Zen. And then I decided to write the book. I was going to quit writing. I mean, I could walk again. Not very well, but I could walk. So I wrote a book called The Story of Zen, where I just tried to start with the life of the Buddha and all the way to the present, and just an overview.
yeah.
Not a bad book, actually. And I did that one, and then COVID hit. And when COVID hit, I realized I had all these interviews, and I had again that sense of the scope that I could write that just because I couldn't go out and do anything else. It was like when I was hospital bedridden in the hospital, and that's why I started writing the first way. Well, I'm now writing because I'm locked at home and nothing else to do, and the focus was to show how the range of teachers will all look at an issue from a different point of view. So I called those two books Zen Conversations and Further Zen Conversations.
Wow. Yeah. And so now,
So now I just took
uh,
that same material and now said, let's look at it. What does it tell us about the history? What does it tell us about the environment where this took place? Why was it able to take place? What were the personalities like of both the people who came here or were trained overseas and came back? And what was the personalities of the people like this guy that travels to San Francisco and later becomes a writer and spends his time hanging around Tassajara, uh, bathing nude in uh, etc. So getting a sense of what that first generation of people, you, are like, as well as that first generation of teachers was like, and doing it from that in that historical perspective, oral historical perspective.
yeah, yeah. Well, I can certainly appreciate and relate to what you've done. You have a formative, impressive body of work there. Wow. And you've really stuck with it.
Like
And
retired.
retired. I can't retire because this is all I do.
Well,
Uh,
the question is, did I retire? Did I just change careers?
right. Yeah. So, is there anything? Well, you have a daughter. Uh,
I have, I have. three daughters. I have, God knows how many grandchildren. I've got one great grandchild. How many grandchildren do
Oh,
I have? Okay, oh, this is embarrassing. Three and two is five, plus four is nine. Yeah, nine grandchildren. Nine grandchildren.
congratulations. You did
Oh,
that in your head.
and one great granddaughter.
Wow. And and when did you? I want to go back to your your original face, but uh, when did you meet your wife, and how long we? You know?
Oh, I met her. She was in a play I directed. Um, so I probably should have mentioned that I'm old enough to have started taking LSD before it was illegal to do so. And I spent
Yeah.
2 years living on mescaline. I would drop mescaline every 72 hours because it took 72 hours to work through my system. If I dropped before 72 hours, nothing happened. So the 72 hours,
Right.
like clockwork, you know, and
Now wait a minute. Wait, what year was that? Years. 2 years.
so
Wow.
67 to those years probably 69, 70.
Uh huh. Uh
Anyway,
huh.
so I was straight the day that the thing that the Birkenberry experience, I was straight. I'd stopped doing drugs by then. Um,
Wow.
but I think one of the reasons why I trusted it was because I recognized that okay, you get that kind of insight on mescaline. So I said, okay, that's one of the reasons why I was sure other people had it. Because if they hadn't had it any other way, they would have had it through hallucinogenics, through
Right.
psychedelics. So one day, probably under the influence again of mescaline, because I always was, a friend of
Oh
mine
my
met
gosh, that's incredible.
met in the met in the student union building. Okay, so this little cottage I'm living in is 5 miles from campus. So, and I didn't have a car, so I would either hitchhike or walk or bum money to get for a taxi. So I spent a lot of time in the on campus just because it was a pain to get back to the house. And he said, "Look, they're looking for directors down at the." Have you ever been in a play? He said, "Of course I've been in a play." So, well, then you know how to direct, don't you? And I go, "Yeah, sure, I know how to direct." So he and I went down and said, "We'll direct the plays." And just because we had bravado, they gave them to us. So I'm given this play to direct, and the drama society is really got everything under control. They've set up the tryouts and everything. All I have to do is show up and choose some actors. I walk in, and there's this one young lady who's sitting there, and her hair, her back to me, and the hair on her head is blonde and straight and goes down below the seat of the chair. And I go, oh my God. That's how I met my wife.
Ah. And what year was that?
She was 19, 69. She was born
Ah,
in
there you
50.
go again. That was done in your head.
That was
Very
done in
good.
my head.
Yeah. And how did that work out?
But it worked out well. It, I realized by that time that what I really wanted was somebody that I could, as a companion. I wanted a companion. I definitely was looking for a life companion by the time I met Joan. Her parents, they did not love me. Her father and brother really didn't love me a lot. In fact, side story, the way I became an international development officer was because I was teaching at university, but it was a bad fit. I, 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 I'm, I keep backing up here, not knowing where to begin. But essentially, when I got to college, I didn't have any idea of where it was going to go. I had made a living putting on aluminum siding. I thought I would do that all my life. I would do, I would have an MA, but I would put on aluminum siding. I would have a PhD, but I would put on aluminum siding. I
Uh,
get a little worried because, vinyl had come in there and I wasn't sure if I had the ability to make that skill shift to vinyl. But it just so happened that they were desperate for someone to help teach a particular situation. So they offered me a job. They offered me money to get a PhD. They gave me a Canada Council. They gave me money. So I kept going and taking the degrees. I didn't know what I was going to do with it. And then they hired me. But it was a bad fit. I wasn't an academic. I had no academic tendencies at all. So I took a year off, and my wife is going nuts because she sees that I'm not doing anything. So she sees an ad in the paper that says the YMCA in Fredericton is looking for someone to do an international development program. She said, that's kind of your field, because my PhD was in the literature of the developing world, Africa, India, the West Indies. And she said,
Goodness.
this is basically your field, isn't it? And I said, well, only by a wild stretch. But I wrote a letter. I had never applied for a job before, and I got a nice letter back saying, thank you for your interest in the position. A lot of people have applied for this job, and we'll interview some of them. And as I said, I had never heard the term PFO before, but I knew exactly what one was when I saw it. So
A what? A what?
please fuck off. PFO,
Oh,
please fuck off.
oh,
So,
ha.
so anyway, so that'd be about September. I forgot. You asked about my wife's family, so I've not lost the segue here. So I forgot that
Yeah.
I wrote the YMCA, and we have a house full of guests at Christmas, including Joan's father and brother, who are not fond of me. And I get the letter. It says, Dear Dr. McDaniel, thank you for your interest in the job at the YMCA. We regret to tell you that the position has been filled. And I can't, for the life of me, imagine what job I ever would have applied for at the YMCA. My father-in-law and brother-in-law start digging at me. Well, you were going to teach them how to drown because you can't swim. You could teach them how to drown real good. You look great in lycra. Boy, that spandex, you're just going to charm them. They were merciless. They were just merciless. And they wouldn't let up. They
That's
wouldn't let
awful.
up. Next day, I got a phone call. Dear Dr. McDaniel, we think you got the wrong letter. Would you come in and see us? And the fact is, if it hadn't been for Joan's father and brother nagging me so much, I would have said, no, no, I'm not interested in working in the YMCA. But they had made such a big point of it that I went. I had no idea what the job was that I was applying for. I walked in. It was 1984. And it was the "We Are the World" thing in the African drought campaign. They had this big display, and I went, "Oh yeah, something to do with international development. I can pull this off." And I think it was the only person they interviewed who spoke Spanish, so that's how I got the job, probably. But that's my relationship with my wife's family is that they lead me to good things, though not necessarily of their own volition.
Yeah. Yeah. That is, I've talked with both my sons about how experiences we had that we thought were bad sometimes lead to things that are good. Uh, yeah. Now, YMCA, International Development, Dominican Republic, the YMCA had a
Okay, so
role in
you
you
have to
getting
stop.
to the Dominican.
You have to stop thinking of the YMCA in the way that it's seen in the United States. I mean, the YMCA was originated in England, and outside of in the United States, it formed in a particular way, which is basically gyms and
Yeah.
daycares, right? And residences. Um, but around the rest of the world, it's mostly social community, what's called community-based social development, which is that in small communities where you can't turn to the government for support because the government is, among other things, the people are taking advantage of you. You form local NGOs and YMCAs or ASEOTs in Spanish, become then basically they define the people in the community will define what the needs of the community are and find what resources that they have to meet those needs. And my job was to work with YMCA's in what was called Eastern Canada East, or the MRC Management Resource Center, the MRC, which was Montreal, to Newfoundland, so it's a huge part of Canada. There were 15 YMCA's in Canada, unlike the United States. Best practices were that if you were to demonstrate best practices, you would be engaged in one of these overseas relationships. And my job was to find ways to especially help really small associations in small towns in New Brunswick, in Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, and Newfoundland still work with YMCA's in developing countries. And the countries that I worked with overseas were the Dominican Republic for the longest time, Honduras, Belize, Cuba, some ecotourism in Guatemala and Mexico.
Wow, that's very interesting. Huh.
And I
And
think I told you my story about daylight savings time. I think I wrote it to you, didn't I?
please repeat it.
Well, one of the first times I'm in the Dominican Republic, one of the questions they had for me was, why is it that sometimes when we phone you, you're on the same time as we are, and sometimes you're not? So you live in a tropical country, you know that the sun sets at the same time every friggin' day. So I had to explain to them daylight savings time, and they're just totally bewildered. And I was just getting my Spanish back. I hadn't spoken a word of Spanish since 1965, just 20 years later. And I'm just getting it back. I think of somebody who's really struggling in English. I sounded worse than that in Spanish. But I'm trying to explain that, well, you change it so that there'll be more sunlight. You just you change the clock so there'll be more sunlight. They just couldn't get it. But what was even more amazing to them was, and you get everybody to do it at the same time. So,
That's great. That's great. Yeah, I've always thought it was weird. Uh, I, I, are you in favor of it?
no, but
Yeah,
the arguments are all stale, and
yeah,
somebody Canada won't change until the United States does. That's the reality. If the United
yeah,
States, I mean, everything else that Trump has done, why doesn't he just do
yeah.
away
Right.
with
Yeah, he
it?
could just
He might
decide
actually
that.
accomplish something positive.
Yeah. Well, he got rid of pennies. He got rid of pennies. That, or at least he set that ball rolling. Uh, oh, that's very interesting. Incidentally, the difference between the longest stay and the shortest stay here is 1 hour and 1 minute
Yeah.
in Bali. But in Singapore, it's 8 minutes. Singapore is right next to the equator.
I live on the river. This house where we're in now, it's really just a cottage, but I've got a deck that allows me to see the arc of the sun. And right now, I am pointing at where the sun sets in the middle of summer. That's where it sets in winter. And that arc of west is a pretty,
That's
it's a huge,
yeah, that's more than a quarter. Uh,
it would be almost a quarter.
oh, almost a quarter.
Okay.
Wow, wow. So yeah, you have enormous difference there between the longest day, the shortest day,
Oh,
when the
yes,
sun
absolutely.
sets,
Absolutely.
rising.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that. I appreciate that.
I remember
Uh,
bringing especially Dominicans when they would come up here, right? And it's 9 o'clock at night and it's still daylight, and they're wondering, does the sun ever set here?
right, right. Well, we actually experienced the difference. I mean, July and August, June, July, August, beginning of September, they're cooler and they're windier, and they're really the best time here. So, all right. Now, your wife, where is she now?
The other room?
Yeah. Well, that's what I wanted to hear. You're still together.
Yes,
Uh,
yes, we have it. You know, falling off a log. Falling off.
yeah.
It was
Good.
easy. I, I, I get I get asked a lot, frequently, moderately frequently, to speak at weddings. And I always say the same things, say three things that, what we want for our kids is that somebody will find them that loves them as much as we love them. And the second thing is that all experiences in life are better for being shared. Even watching a stupid television program is better to do it with somebody than without somebody. And then all
Yeah,
you have to do to keep it as all you need to do to keep it alive is to be kind to one another. It worked. It's a formula that was my reflection on my life, and then
yeah,
it just worked. I
yeah,
know that it's unusual because uh, that's not it didn't happen for most people that I knew. It just happened to happen for work for us.
yeah, yeah. Well, we've my wife and I have been together 21 years, and we have a relationship sort of like that. Except I appreciate more the I don't watch anything unless she's watching with me. When she goes, we watch something just about every night. For a while, we start falling asleep. When she goes to America, I don't watch anything.
Hmm.
I just work, and I might watch some short things like Penn and Teller's Foolish Magic stuff. That's interesting. Well, that's really great. Okay, so I want to go back to your current book or anything from any. Is there any highlight or anything of particular interest
Well,
that comes to mind?
the thing was, when I started doing this, again, naive, um, but I also had, and I think it's something that you've talked about in relation to the people that you describe, is that people have an assumption of what a Zen teacher is going to be like. They have a certain preconception in their mind, and they're
Yeah,
looking for that to some extent. So, without intending to, I probably had that as well. What I discovered was that all these people, I said in, I think I said in Cypress Trees that they were all people that I would be just as happy having a beer with talking about something other than Zen. They were all willing to talk. I think so the big surprise was how absolutely forthright people were being. Even now that I finally got Richard Baker to talk, once I got him talking, he was blunt, he was fair. Now, a lot of people have since said to me, well, okay, maybe you shouldn't publish what I said. And I tell them, well, in that case, just highlight it in yellow on the transcript and I'll take it out. I will not, so I won't publish anything unless I show them what it is that I say I'm going to attribute to them. They can rephrase it if they want to, because sometimes we're not as eloquent. I'm not as eloquent now as I would be if I'd had time to, rehearse these answers, but also because you might think better of it and think, well, geez, I really shouldn't. So I'll let them take that out and so on. Uh, so, but essentially, what I was struck by was how forthcoming people would be. I think because everybody wants to tell their story to some extent, and I always start off by asking, well, how are you most comfortable being addressed? Only one person has ever asked me to call him Roshi. And he then wrote me a letter and apologized and said, I'm sorry. I should have just said, call me Bowden. And actually, he said Bowden, not Roshi. That's how he signed it. So
uh,
they've always been very much on a first person name, no matter how exalted I may have thought they were in the. So I guess the first thing that I discovered was, okay, you can take all the mystery out of this. These are just people who are have a skill set, and that skill set is such that they can help people achieve some form of awakening, some form of a sense of engagement with the Dharma in their lives. That's a skill set, uh,
yeah,
and to that extent, they are no more miraculous than anybody else than a guy who can cut glass beautifully or whatever. It's a skill set.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
and they're willing to talk about it. They're willing to be frank about it. They are usually most of them. There's one or two exceptions. Most of them are very funny people. are witty, but there's a couple that are maybe not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, so I guess that was the main thing that was a surprise to me. The variety. It was Josh
Yeah.
Bartok that gave me the. Josh is out on the outs at the moment. He had to turn back his robes and everything. Again, another guy who probably did not keep his marriage vows. So
Uh-huh.
he he uh, he said when I began with Albert made it very clear when you start working with a teacher, and he actually did. I actually did give him a box of incense. He said that's like a marriage, you know. You're faithful to this guy. You don't go to Dokusan to somebody else. You go, you're my student.
Yeah.
So, but at Boundless Way, where Josh was, they said no. We want you to go to all four teachers at that time. That was James Ford, David Reinick, Melissa Blacker, and Josh Bartek. And but
All
and
four
Josh,
teachers in what? What?
you go to all four in Dokusan. You don't just go to one teacher. You go to all
In
four.
what group had four teachers, sir?
Boundless Way Zen.
Oh,
Okay, so
yeah.
Boundless Way Zen was in Worcester and Providence and North New England. So James Ford started it. The two secondary teachers were Melissa Blacker and David Reinick, and then Josh Bartok. And they each would have a different sangha, but they all made a point of making sure that they checked in with the other teachers as well. So instead of like Albert saying, "Look, I'm the guy you come to," they said, "No, you don't just come to me. You come to these other three guys." And what Josh said to me was, "The reason you do that is so that you can see the difference between personality and dharma." And I went, absolutely crystal clear. Yep, that's my subject matter. What's the difference between personality and dharma? And so that's why I
Yeah.
became fascinated with the whole range, the scope, as I call it, of Zen teaching, which is so broad and so wide, and such a variety of different ways of approaching or even understanding the tradition.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah. Yeah. I have no particular question. I just want to keep hearing interesting things. Now, I encouraged Richard Baker and with Nicole,
He
I'd
mentioned
write
that
both of them
he
to
mentioned
talk
it.
with you.
He mentioned it.
He uh, you know, well, anyway, so many people relate to him in terms of, stuff that happened 40 years ago.
Well, I told him that.
It's
I told him, look, I don't really care. I don't care what happened.
Yeah,
That what I'm interested in is what did you do after you left San Francisco? Because I don't think
yeah,
that story his story is told usually as if it ended in 1983,
yeah,
but it didn't. It was an interesting story that continued from that. So I gave him the same deal that I give everybody else. I will not quote anything here that you haven't approved ahead of time, that you haven't been able to rephrase if you want to, because he does have the aphasia, so he struggles with nouns.
yeah,
And then if I write his would be the first chapter in the second book. I'll show him the chapter, and anything that if he thinks that in any way that it is unfair, we will try to balance it. Because the
yeah.
goal is, I'm not an investigative reporter. What I want to
Yeah,
do is be able to say, here is how the people who were engaged saw what was happening. They may be
yeah,
wrong. They may have entirely misinterpreted what was going on, but this is the way they saw it happening. So this is the
yeah,
way Richard Baker saw what happened.
yeah, yeah. Well, I totally understand that. I have the same sort of attitude. What month did you see him? He had his uh,
Stroke was
stroke
in May.
in.
I just interviewed him 4 weeks ago.
Oh, that recently. I was just with him and Nicole in Germany, and I was really impressed with his energy and his clarity. And like you said, he has nominal aphasia, which usually anybody that starts getting older after the 30s, starts experiencing a little of it. So
I
I
told him,
just,
I'm at this age now that I go to the refrigerator, open it up, stare at it for half an hour, trying to remember why I opened the door, close the door, walk away, and remember, oh yes, I wanted milk. Go back. So,
right, right. Well, yeah, I understand that. But I just say he made more noun errors
yeah.
than I do. But I knew what they were and all that.
He did keep coming back to topics that he felt he really wanted to make sure that I understood. And even Nicole sort of kept saying, "No, look, no, we've dealt with that. We've dealt with that. Let's go back to the questions." But he really felt that he had been mis disproportionately treated. Um, that the way people reacted, they weren't reacting to just a sexual relationship. They were reacting to him as a person. And he wanted it to be clear that he was not the predator that Edo Shimano was, and that he wasn't. But people sort of, and Nicole said the same thing. She said, people talk about him as if he were an Edo Shimano, and he never was an Edo Shimano.
No, no, that's true.
So,
And
and so he just
if
wanted to
you,
make sure that got out. So he would keep coming
yeah,
back to that when we would moved on, but he would to just to make sure that I didn't miss that point.
yeah, yeah. I've made very clear on Cuke.com that he did not come on to women at Zen Center, and I have women. I have interviews with women. You know, who say that. You know, I mean, I briefed just for that one thing. And the New York Review of Books on Shoes Outside the Door, Shoes wrote that women were coming to Zen Center and being assigned to be his concubine.
Yeah.
I mean, how irresponsible is that? And I wrote them a letter.
I'm pretty sure Downing didn't say that either.
No, Downing didn't. I called Downing about it, and he said, "Oh, I thought it was pretty positive." I said, "Well, the thing is, people get that impression reading your book. It's and oh, I talked to him about more. I went over the book with him before it was published, but and I wrote the New York Review of Books a very carefully written email refuting that, and they didn't print it. And then somebody told me, "Oh, you weren't you weren't like." Angry and criticizing. You wrote a polite letter, so it wasn't interesting enough for them or something." But yeah, that sort of thing
I just
that still
recently,
follows him.
I just recently, then this has been in the last 2 months, had to change the settings on my web page. I
Yeah.
had because I just let people put comments, and I was suddenly somebody took it upon themselves as a mission to write about every posting I made if there was somebody that had any sexual flutters in their life at all to bring them forward, but it was done anonymously. So what I did was I'd never deleted comments before, but I went through and I deleted all of these and I changed the settings saying if you put your name down, you can say anything you want. You can say the same thing, but I want your name on it. I don't want it to be anonymous. So nobody's responded yet. But I had to do that. I don't want to put anonymous notes up about things that I have no way of verifying.
I got some stuff out here, and now he's talking about Richard Baker.
He did say that you were that he had agreed to talk to me because you had suggested it. So that was his reference to you. If somebody talked about a student and then thought afterwards, uh, I really should not have specifically mentioned that student, then when I send them the transcript, they can say, "Oh, I shouldn't have said that about whoever." I send them back the corrected transcript, and I tell them it's true. I delete the original from my files. I'm sure I said the same thing to you, that I will delete the original. All I'll work from is the transcript that you have amended, that you have approved, that you have altered to your satisfaction. I won't keep the other one. So that because I'm not trying to catch anybody out.
Yeah.
I want you to describe in your perspective of what happened. Um, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I
so
understand that. I, I tell people, well, I don't, I take out anything anybody wants, but I take out things that, where they say something that makes somebody else look bad.
mhm.
Unless it's Suzuki or Baker or, the higher up ones that are like, uh, historical figures, you
Well,
know.
there are differences of opinions, and so that you have, for example, the Sasaki people. Now, they can be pretty brutal in their comments about everybody else.
Uh huh.
So, but if I'm quoting them, I have to include the fact that they're saying these things that I may not agree with, but it reflects their attitude, their assumption that really only Sasaki was the real deal, and everybody else was a fake. I mean, he dismisses Soto Zen entirely as just a waste of time. Philip Kapleau did the same thing.
Yeah, I
They both
know.
they,
I know.
they both had these perceptions that are, and I probably did the same thing because I didn't know any better. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've got a close friend here who was Kaplo's first ordained monk. I mean, Kaplo didn't ordain him, he had somebody else. And he was there 9 years. And he said it was like, to them, they were the only place there was real Zen.
yeah.
And Walter Nowick was a little bit that way. I mean, he 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 was so far out. He'd open people's private mail and read it to the group and ridicule. He'd read like from the San Francisco Zen Center windbell, read stuff and ridicule it. Zen Center, I don't try to protect because it's an institution, and they're doing fine, I think. But institutions, they're always going off course.
But what Richard did say something interesting that he said one of the reasons that they could have the reconciliation now was that all the people who used to be there are dead. It's been 40 years.
Oh,
They're all the people that they had
listen,
trouble with, they're all gone.
listen, that's really true. I mean, Ed Brown was banned from giving talks at Zen Center for like 7 years until we got new abbots. And one of them, who we're very close with, has stayed with us, Mako, who's the abbot of the city, but actually is at Tassajara most of the time. She just invited him to give a talk there. She didn't ask anybody. She didn't ask any committee permission. And so, but that's institutions, And look at the Catholic Church. It survived. It's got, people don't realize that the Catholic religion has a lot of light in it. They just think it's all pederasty and the Inquisition. And I'll hear somebody talking. I'd say, do you know the percentage of priests that are pederasts? It's like, 1% or something, and which is high.
Mhm.
But and then a friend of mine somebody I knew was going on and on about like, grooming boys and stuff, listening to Fox News and crap or whatever. But I said, do you know what percentage of pederasty is homosexual? 5%. And they get these ideas in their mind. But anyway, so all right, enough of all that. I mean, that's interesting stuff. What I've noticed with some of the stories I've heard about some groups is if it has to do with sex, that's it.
Well, it's curious. It is curious, but the big exception of that is Sung Song because the community just didn't care.
Well, Trungpa,
What do they call him? The
yeah,
regent who had HIV, knew he had HIV, and still, you know. So no, no, the trunk people are that they were
yeah. Well,
they're something else entirely
they're
different.
aware of that now. I
Well, yeah, they had to because the son he got out of his nose out of joint as well. Um, in Canada, there was a national broadcasting system, CBC, that ran about a six-part expose about because he's located in Halifax, huh? That's where the headquarters
right.
of the Shambhala movement is, and they wrote about a six-part docu-series on it that was really every bit as vicious. It made Downing's book look like he was being nice.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Oh, that's very interesting. I didn't know about that. No, a very close friend of mine. I mean, I know a number of people in Halifax still. Some of us still standing. Uh, said there are altars or groups that have Trungpa's picture. There's groups that have the
Satyang,
yeah
the
Satsang
Satyang, the son.
Satyang's picture. There's groups that have neither, and yeah. But one thing I've noticed is that I was going to say that anything that has to do with sex, it comes to the forefront in our awareness and what's reported and talked about and written. But if it has to do with abuse that's not sexual, it tends to be forgotten and overlooked. You know, uh, but all right, where was I going there? I went off in that little aside. Uh, all right,
Me all the time.
huh?
That happens to me all the time.
Oh
So
yeah,
I
me
said,
too.
I open the
That
refrigerator door and I wonder why.
yeah yeah ha 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 ha. Well, that's very interesting. Uh, the I I now there's I'm getting ideas of what to say next, and I think we've done enough of all that. Uh, any other anything else comes to mind with you?
It's been fun. I guess that's the
Hey,
main
wait,
thing.
I've lost your audio. Oh, there you are. Yeah,
Am I back? Okay.
yeah,
It's been, I think the main thing about it is how much fun it's been to do this.
yeah.
That it's been just a pleasure. Um, I joke that my wife likes me to have big projects. When I was doing international development work, she liked me to have, a new project that I had to build. It would keep me occupied.
Right,
When I retired, she was worried.
right, right.
So, so the books have been keeping me occupied. But
Yep.
but one of the things that is that it's just been a whole lot of fun to do it, which is strange because my early experiences of Zen was about how unfun it was before I became engaged.
Your
That
early
how people
experience with what?
with Zen people
Oh, yeah.
was often how unfun they were. How, in fact, I used to joke that in the Kapleau system, you could tell who was enlightened. They would define enlightened. If you passed Mu, you were enlightened. Okay, if you accept that vision of things,
Right.
and if you had passed the miscellaneous koans, you were given the Rakusu. So the Rakusu was not a sign of membership; it was a sign of attainment. So
Oh,
you so you knew who. They changed this later, but this is when they started. So you knew who was enlightened because he had a
yeah,
Rakusu.
yeah,
So what are the two things you notice about them? First of all, often they're not particularly nice people. more importantly, often they're miserably, miserably unhappy people. So whatever the Enlightenment did, it didn't make them fun.
Yeah,
But I've discovered that the group now that most of these people are fun people.
yeah,
So somewhere along the line, we weeded out all the
yeah,
less fun individuals.
yeah, yeah,
So I guess that would be the thing. The reason I keep doing it in part is because I've enjoyed it. There, it is. It remains excitingly interesting, and I still come across people with visions of Zen that are so entirely different from anyone else's that it always just amazes me. Was doing a transcript of a guy named Guy Gaudry, who is in London, Ontario, and is a John Tarrant student, but has a vision that again is absolutely unlike anyone else's that I've encountered. So I continue to find that astonishing and
yeah,
uh, amusing and interesting.
yeah, yeah. I understand that. Oh, listen, I remembered the point I was getting to when we are talking about the different groups and the problematic teachers and this and that. What I think a lot, it, uh, in many cases, there have been teachers and students come out of that in later generations that are pretty impressive and doing a good job. What do you think about that?
Okay, so first of all, put yourself back to the time. Probably what year is 1958? I'm guessing, I may be wrong, that the pill's invented. You know, that changed the way in which women thought about sexuality in a way that had never been done before. So that first generation of young women had a view of what they were free to do or not free to do that none of their ancestors had ever had, because none of their ancestors had had that assurance of being able to have a sex life without getting pregnant. So that changes the way in which things, and we didn't understand power dynamics. We should have maybe, but in fact we didn't. We didn't understand the fact that I think we would draw the line at maybe a psychiatrist having a relationship with his patient, but professors frequently had relationships with their students and frequently had marriages. So it was a different time. We didn't have the insights that we have now. So everybody's just finding their way at that time.
Yeah,
And I think that, I mean, God, how old was Baker when he became abbot for life? 35?
yeah, something like that.
He's a child.
Yeah,
A
35.
child,
That's right.
35. You know,
Yeah,
I don't want to be held responsible for shit I did when I was 35.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
Um,
he did a lot of good things. I mean, he was really a visionary.
yeah,
Uh,
and I described him as actually. Nicole thought this was funny. He didn't get it, but she thought it was funny. I described him as being he's basically Saint Paul. You know, who founded Christianity? It wasn't Jesus. It was Saint Paul. It's the second guy.
uh, uh-huh.
So I would say who built San Francisco Zen Center? It wasn't Suzuki. It was Richard Baker.
Oh yeah, I say that. Uh, well, I gave a talk when he stepped down and Nicole stepped up as habit. I gave there was a day for him and a day for her, and there was this whole thing orchestrated by Paul Rosenblum, and so I was the first person to speak, and the point I made that none of us would be here without two people, one Shunryu Suzuki and one Richard Baker. And I said, same thing at Zen Center. It wouldn't be there without Richard Baker. And so I've always considered him a co-founder of the San Francisco Zen Center. Uh, we don't know what would have happened if he hadn't have
Well,
been in the picture, but
I mean, it's a little bit like asking what would have happened if Capello hadn't written the Three Pillars. There might have been Zen in the world. It would not have been like the Zen that we've got now if it hadn't been for Three Pillars. Because
Three
even
pillars.
people who did, if even people who didn't like that type of pro, it is what got them in the door.
That's right.
It's what got people to go to San Francisco because they read the Three Pillars.
Right.
And so it's like I think Baker, Capello, they did things that had they not been there, maybe Zen would have developed, but it would have developed in an entirely less extravagant manner.
Yeah, he was the only one who had that sort of vision. The
Mhm.
the the person that a lot of people say, well, it was that Suzuki made a mistake, that Silas should have been that. But Silas would have been more like a Quaker center, you know, democratic, sharing this, and they're not trying, not expansive at all. I mean, Green Gulch Farm, Baker was the only person who wanted it. Everybody on the board was against it, but he's so persuasive, and he made the case. I've said this so many times in podcasts. I should move on. That Zen Center wouldn't survive without a certain size, and he did the same thing with Dharmasaga in Germany. Exactly the same sort of thing. Yeah, his vision, but also the way he stuck with it. Good Lord, has he stuck with it? My God.
No, I think that was, I said that, that's what I told him when I started. I said, they tell your stories of ends in 1983. What I'm fascinated by the fact was that you didn't hang up. You had skill sets. You could have done something else. You could have gone on, but you
Yeah,
stuck it out. You
yeah,
stuck it out.
yeah. One person, in Tassajara, I mentioned is seeing this psychic, Fred
Yes.
Kimball, and he comes in the second book too. There's another meeting with him, and in the second book, I'm there with my sister and my good friend who's in Halifax, and after we've gotten readings, we're asking about people, and so I said, "Well, what about Richard?" That's all I had to say. And if we knew him, he could get a reading on him. And he said, "Wow, here's someone that can be knocked down 3 times and still get up." Now, and Fred was a boxer and a wrestler. He was a rough guy, right? Uh, and I said, "Well, he hadn't really been knocked down a second or third time." He said, "Oh, he will be." Yeah. Well, at some point we'll have to say goodbye. I like talking with you. I really appreciate what you have to say.
Well, thank you. It was kind of you to invite me.
Yeah. I thought, why haven't I asked him before? Oh, God. Yesterday I got word that a woman died who I hadn't, I'd lost touch with, and she was an early Suzuki student. Well, but sort of she was, Tassajara era Suzuki student. Pretty crazy, but I should have been in touch with her. So I regretted that. And, I always have, there's always, I have, a list of regrets that come back. And I just go, you know, I remember my son Clay and I, a friend, somebody I knew and he knew died. And Clay, who's my younger son, he's just in his 30s now, he said, "Oh, God, I really feel bad I didn't see him before he died." I said, "Get used to it. No matter how hard you try, you won't get there will be a
Well,
lot."
we've reached that age where the warranty has expired.
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Well,
What frightens me even more is the number of people I know who have got some form of dementia, and that number is steadily growing. And that's every bit as bad as seeing them die as seeing them disappear.
Hmm. Hmm.
So,
I've seen a couple of cases of fairly benign dementia. Yvonne Rand, like her hard edges, her judgmentalism has sort of disappeared, and she just got more and more loving, and that was great. And she had very sort of inspiring things to say as she was dying. And Silas Hoadley, two very important people in the development of Zen Center. Silas Hoadley, Bill Porter, and Silas were very close. So I would speak to Silas when they were taking their Friday walk, going to get a hot chocolate through Bill's phone because I couldn't call Silas at home. I needed someone to help, and it was wonderful talking to him. And he'd remember some things and forget some things, but he was clearly sort of fading away, but always very pleasant and enjoyable. And then he just sort of faded away.
the way of some old guy about 2,500 years ago talked about impermanence. I forget what his name was, but he went on and on about it a lot.
Yeah, about 2,500 years ago, right? Right. Impermanence.
He wouldn't shut up about impermanence.
That's my mantra right now is anicca, is impermanence. It's a healing mantra.
Well, it certainly is something that you become more and more conscious of.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Anicca and thank you. Those are, you know, the two things I carry with me.
I summed up my at the end of one of the books. I say, what did I get out of all this Zen practice? And I said, well, I can't tell you. I don't know because I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't done it. But what I do know is that I got out of it, out what it still blossoms as a sense of wonder, awe, gratitude, and reverence.
Yeah.
And those I think are the fruits of my practice: wonder, awe, gratitude, reverence. So
Ooh,
that's my mantra.
that's good. Suzuki said, well, he'd say various things, but he said, we practice Zen so we can enjoy our old age.
I'll accept that.
Yeah. People would think that's what he has to say, but then he had other times he'd say other things. Ed Brown's disciple, Dan Parker, I think, I'm close with, but right now I just that last name, put out a book of Ed's lectures called The Most Important Point. And when he did that, he didn't realize there is a page on Cuke.com that has the 150 times Suzuki said the most important point or the most important thing. But more than that, I can't remember the number. And something different every time, right?
Oh,
But Ed remembered the number one, which is the most important point, is to figure out what the most important point is.
yeah. You try to avoid those Zen guys. They keep saying stuff just to fuck with your mind.
Yeah, yeah. It, is, Suzuki didn't really have any particular teaching. Do you find that to be the case more
Well,
widely?
it, one of the questions that I ask and get the range of responses to, Richard Baker was interesting on this one, was Tell me what a Zen teacher teaches. And the answers to that, I've got an entire chapter of different people describing what it is that a Zen teacher teaches. But in a lot of, and it'll range. Shugen Arnold, for example, says that he doesn't teach Zen; he teaches Buddhism. Good for him. Joshin Burns says that he doesn't teach Buddhism because he doesn't know anything about Buddhism. He doesn't think he's a Buddhist. He's a Zen teacher. So, there's just, again, that range of responses.
Yeah.
Um, so,
Suzuki emphasized Buddhism.
yeah, well, in Catholicism and in Zen, I said that I'm a Roman Catholic by birth and heritage and a Zen practitioner by nature and temperament, but I'm not a Buddhist.
Yeah. 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 Suzuki would say Buddhism is a dirty word, you know. He'd say, or can be a dirty word, is really what he meant. And, just sticking to any idea, that's a repeated theme of his. Yeah, hard to follow. But anyway, I'm glad I got in touch with it. It's been good for me. It's been good for you. Oh, I wanted to say one thing. You went to New Brunswick because it was $500 a year to go to college. We're paying now. We don't have a lot of money, We just get by on donations and a little bit from publishing and stuff, but not much. But our housekeeper's daughter, we paid her way through college, $500 a year here.
It can be that in other countries too. It doesn't have to be what it's become in the United States.
Yeah, awful.
So,
That's true. It can be
and
free.
I mean, the other thing, uh, I am blown away every time I think about the amount of anxiety all of my American relatives have about health care. The fact that there is no
Terrible.
health care in the United States, it's the only developed country in the world that doesn't have health care, I think.
Yeah,
Just about.
terrible. Uh,
So there are things that people will every once in a while say, well, do you ever think about moving back? And I keep saying, geez, do you not watch the news? Of
uh,
course, I'm not going to move back.
well,
So,
when you get older, Medicare is pretty good. Uh,
yeah,
they'll try to destroy that too and keep lying to people, and they'll control the I don't know what will happen, but they keep controlling the message, and yeah, it's awful. That terrible thing that Elon Musk did, come in with and Project 2021, which is really running the government in America now. They're just destroying all these parts of the bureaucracy, talking about getting waste and abuse and get rid of any. It's in corporations. It's the government was just writing checks to corporations that are, like in the pharmaceutical companies, the whole medical industry there. It's just like money, like a magnet, just trying to absorb more and doing anything it can to do that. Yeah, well, it's pretty good here now, but it's got problems too here.
shall we bring this to a close, sir?
Yeah. Hey, it's been really good talking with
Thank
you
you.
about various and sundry. Look forward to your new book coming out. And
Hey, how big a stickler are they about that style sheet they sent me?
they didn't send me one.
Yeah, they sent me a style sheet.
I've found them extremely good to deal with.
Okay. Well, James said that he didn't think he didn't think they even bothered to proofread his manuscripts. So, but he's very happy with them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I have people who work with me that I couldn't function without, especially Peter Ford, and Wendy Piercy, and they went over Tassara's stories. Actually, all three books because I wrote them at the same time. We spent months going on it, and especially Peter's really good at finding errata. But now we're getting I'm getting a list of errata to change if there's another printing already. It's very hard. I still get errata from Crooked Cucumber every now and then.
Sure, sure, sure,
And that
sure.
was gone over by so many people so carefully. It's amazing. But I never relied on publishers, even Random House, for any of that. They could do
Copy
it.
editing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Anyway, well, I'll find out. I looked at the styles. It was mostly what format they wanted to format, what typeface they wanted. I figured I could probably do it all by just control all and make that changes that way. So
yeah, yeah.
I think they also wanted to make sure that I didn't use Canadian spelling.
Yeah, yeah. Sounds like it's all sure. Okay. Uh,
Uh,
yeah. I
Thank you,
don't care.
David.
Yeah. Well, it's been very good, and we're closing out now. About a little over 5 minutes before 2 hours, and
Oh, there you go.
yeah, yeah. So you take care and stay in touch. Let me know how it's going.
I will. Be kind to yourself.
Yeah, you too. All right.
Thank you, Dave. This
Yeah.
was a great pleasure.
Yeah, no kidding. Bye bye. So thanks a lot, Rick McDaniel. That was very good. I really appreciated it. And look forward to Original Face coming out, probably in like a year and a half or something. This has been a Cuke Audio Podcast. I'm DC, Poobah of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, coming to you from Sleepy Sanur with Doggy Bandita, Feline Manis, and dear lovely Katrinka. And we're wishing you and yours and all of us a grand awakening.